When I was 15, my parents left me home alone for the weekend. It wasn't my first time being on my own, so I wasn't worried. I had food, a charged phone, and all I planned to do was binge horror movies and stay up late. The first night went fine. I microwaved some popcorn, watched TV, and eventually fell asleep on the couch. That's when I heard the first noise. At first it was soft, just a faint shuffling sound. I assumed it was the house settling or the wind outside. But then I heard it again. A scraping noise coming from inside the walls. I sat up, my heart pounding. It was coming from the hallway near my bedroom. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate, like someone crawling. I turned on every light as I made my way down the hall. Silence. My room was exactly how I left it. But something felt off. I checked the closet. Nothing. I checked under the bed. Nothing. Then, just as I was about to leave, knock knock, from inside the crawl space, I froze. Our house had a small, unused crawl space door at the bottom of my closet. It was never opened, and as far as I knew, it was empty. But now something was inside. I backed away slowly, my breath caught in my throat. Then, the door handle turned. I ran. I locked myself in the bathroom, shaking as I dialed my dad's number. He answered groggily, but when I told him what was happening, he snapped awake. Get out of the house. Now. I grabbed my keys and bolted out the front door. Minutes later, police arrived. When they opened the crawl space, they found a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and a knife. Someone had been living in our house for days. Even worse, when they checked security cameras, they saw something horrifying. Footage showed the crawl space door slowly opening in the middle of the night. A man's hand reached out, pushing the door open just enough for him to watch me sleep. I never stayed home alone again. When I was 17, my parents left me alone while they visited family. We lived in a quiet neighborhood with big yards and lots of trees. It was safe, or so I thought. I was in my room upstairs scrolling through my phone when I got a text from my neighbor. Are you expecting someone? There's a man at your back door. My stomach dropped. I peeked through my blinds and saw nothing. But then, another text. He just moved around the side of the house. I crept to my bathroom window that overlooked the backyard. That's when I saw him, a man in a hoodie, standing completely still by the tree line. He wasn't moving. He wasn't trying to break in. He was just watching. I backed away from the window, heart racing. My neighbor texted again. He's at the kitchen window now. I ran to the stairs but stopped dead in my tracks. My kitchen had big sliding glass doors, and when I peeked over the railing, I saw him. He was standing at the glass, pressed up against it, staring inside. His face was covered in dirt, his eyes wide. Then he smiled. I called 911 and whispered what was happening. The operator told me to stay quiet and keep all the doors locked. I was shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Minutes later, police arrived, but by the time they searched the yard, he was gone. The scariest part, they found shoe prints outside every window. He had been watching me for hours. I barely slept that night, but around 3 a.m., I heard something outside again. This time, I looked out my window and saw him standing in my driveway. He tilted his head, almost like he knew I was watching. Then slowly he raised one hand and waved. The next morning my neighbor checked her security cameras. The man had been lurking around the houses for 3 nights straight. They never caught him. When I was 14, my parents left me home alone while they went out for dinner. It wasn't my first time staying by myself, so I wasn't too worried. I locked the doors, double-checked the windows, and settled in on the couch with my laptop. It was around 9 p.m. when I first heard it. A whisper. At first, I thought I imagined it. It was faint, barely noticeable over the hum of the refrigerator. But then I heard it again, a man's voice whispering my name. I froze. My stomach dropped as I stared down the dark hallway leading to my bedroom. Come here. The voice was soft, almost playful, like someone coaxing a child out of hiding. I felt my skin crawl. My first thought was that my dad had come home early, but I knew that wasn't possible. I had locked the door behind them. Slowly I stood up, every instinct screaming at me to run. "Mom," I called out, though I knew she wouldn't answer. Silence. Then, from inside my bedroom, "Come here now." I took a step back, my breath caught in my throat. Someone was in the house. Gripping the TV remote like a weapon, I crept toward the front door. I wanted to call 911, but my phone was in my room, where the voice had come from. Then, just as I reached for the doorknob, I heard it again. Laughter. Low, deep, wrong. I didn't think, I just bolted out the door, sprinting barefoot across the yard to my neighbor's house. I pounded on their door until they answered, my words tumbling over each other as I tried to explain. They let me in and called the police. I sat on their couch, shaking, waiting for the officers to check my house. When they finally came out, their faces were serious. "There's no one inside," one of them said. "No signs of forced entry." I felt sick. "I heard someone," I insisted. The officers exchanged a look. Then one of them sighed. "You should see this." They led me back to my house. Everything looked normal until we got to my bedroom. My closet door was wide open. Inside, carved into the wall with something sharp, were the words, "I saw you." The police found no other signs of entry. The doors had been locked. The windows hadn't been touched. There was no way someone could have gotten inside, let alone left without a trace. They told me it was probably a prank or my imagination, but I knew what I heard. I refused to sleep in that room again. My parents let me move into the guest room, and for a while things seemed normal, until one night when I found something worse. A few years earlier, when I was younger, my mom had set up a baby monitor in my room. She never took it down, and the receiver still worked. I hadn't thought about it in years, but for some reason, that night, I decided to turn it on. At first, it was just static, but then, breathing. Slow, raspy, like someone was standing right next to the microphone. Then, through the crackling static, came a whisper. "I saw you, and I'll be back." I smashed the receiver, unplugging it as my hands shook. I never told my parents what I heard, but the next morning, I found something that haunts me to this day. On the wall, just below where the first message had been scratched, were fresh claw marks, like someone had been inside the closet again.